Okay, so a huge new law just landed in Washington. It's called Public Law 11921. Now, most of it is, super dense legal stuff, but buried deep inside are some really important sections that are about to change how much money you actually take home. We've waded through all of it for you, and we're going to show you exactly how this thing is going to affect your wallet. So really, it all boils down to one simple question, right? How is this going to change your taxes? Let's cut right to the chase and find out. Here's our game plan. First, we'll do a quick flyover of what this law is all about. Then, we'll dive right into the changes that affect your paycheck. After that, we'll look at some new tax relief aimed at the middle class, see what's in it for businesses, and finally, we'll zoom out to see the big picture.
All right, first up, what in the world is this law? The easiest way to think about Public Law 119-21 is as a giant omnibus bill. That basically means it bundles a whole bunch of different policies all into one massive piece of legislation. And trust me, it touches pretty much every corner of the economy.
And I'm really not exaggerating about its scope. I mean, the table of contents is wild. It goes from military funding all the way to farming regulations. But we're going to skip right past all that stuff and get to the part that matters most to you, the section with all the big changes to the tax code. So let's get right into how this will affect the money you see in your bank account every week. We're going to start with your paycheck, because this law creates a major tax overhaul for two really common sources of income: tips and overtime. First off, let's talk tips. The law introduces a brand new deduction for something it calls qualified tips. This is aimed squarely at people in jobs where tips are a big part of their income. Servers, barbers, bartenders. The government is even going to publish an official list of these jobs to make it super clear who qualifies.
And here is the magic number. You can now deduct up to $25,000 in tips from your taxable income every single year. For service industry workers, this is a game changer. And get this, the best part is you can claim this tax break even if you take the standard deduction. That's huge.
Now, the law does something very similar for overtime pay. It creates a category for a qualified overtime, which is just the money you earn for working more than a standard work week. So if you're a nurse picking up an extra shift or a factory worker putting in hours on a Saturday, this new rule is for you. So what's the limit here? For overtime, you can deduct up to $12,500 a year. But, and this is a key detail for families, that number actually doubles to $25,000 if you're married and you file your taxes together. Okay, so that's what's changing with the money you earn directly from work. But the law also rolls out some relief for common household costs, and believe it or not, creates a totally new way to save for the future. This next one is, well, it's a pretty big deal. For as long as most of us can remember, you could deduct mortgage interest, but never, ever car loan interest. Well, this law flips that on its head, at least for a little while. It creates a brand new deduction for the interest you pay on a loan for your personal car. But it is really important to know the specifics here. This is not a permanent change. The deduction is only available for 4 years, from 2025 through 2028. It applies to loans for most regular cars and seems pretty clearly designed to be a temporary shot in the arm for family budgets. All right, next up is one of the most unexpected things in this entire law: the creation of a brand new program that's officially named Trump Accounts. Now, this isn't a tax deduction. It's a completely new kind of government-backed investment account. And the whole idea is to give kids a financial head start in life. So how does this whole thing work? Let's walk through it. First, the Treasury sets up an account for an eligible kid. Then, money can go into that account from family, maybe an employer, or even through a new government pilot program. That cash is then invested in simple, safe index funds so it can grow over time. And finally, once the child turns 18, they can access the money. So we've talked a lot about individuals and families, but this law also makes some massive changes for businesses. The central idea seems to be shifting the financial incentives to really encourage companies to invest more right here in the U.S. This slide shows a really fundamental policy shift for American innovation. So before this law, companies had to write off their big research and development costs slowly over several years. This new law completely changes the game. If a company spends that R&D money in the United States, they can now deduct the entire cost in the very same year. But if that research happens overseas, they have to stick with the old, slower method. It's a powerful new reason to innovate at home. And here's the exact language right from the law itself. You can see it's incredibly direct.
By making the benefits so crystal clear, the law is trying to send a signal, making the U.S. the most attractive place in the world for companies to invent the future.
Okay, so we've dug into the details, from tips and overtime to car loans and R&D. Now let's just zoom out for a minute and ask, what's the big idea here? What is this law really trying to do?
You know, when you put it all together, you can see a few clear strategies emerge. You've got targeted help for specific kinds of workers. You've got temporary relief for common family expense. There's a totally new long-term savings plan for kids. And then there are these big permanent changes meant to boost business investment here at home. It's really a mix of short-term relief and a long-term bet on the American economy.
And that really brings us to the final big picture question. We've just seen how this one law could change everything from a server's weekly paycheck to a family's decision to buy a new car to a tech company's entire innovation strategy. The real question is, when you add all of these changes up, big and small, how will they ultimately reshape the economy that all of us live and work in for years to come?